Innate helps companies avoid project surprises, make better informed decisions, share knowledge, and deliver better outcomes. Innate, transforming the way the world builds.
Hello, project people, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Project Chatter podcast. As we always say, it's amazing to have you with us. Another episode, another fantastic guest. As you probably picked up, no Val on this episode, but that's his loss because we have a fantastic topic to talk about: career challenges, opportunities, and trends, a student's perspective. And we also have Martin, who's going to join us slightly late, so we can say lots about him. But our guest today, Magnus Olsen, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, and thank you for having me. It's really looking forward to this hour or hour and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. So am I. So am I. Look, we always love to start with a bit of a baseline up front because we are project professionals, and a good project has got a good baseline. But I'd love to know, in terms of a baseline for us, what is your view as where are you starting from? Why are you a student, and why can you give us a student's perspective? Tell us.
Oh, you jump straight to the core, don't you? I'm probably not the typical student because I've been studying for all my life, really, and reached the mature age of 50 next Friday. So
Wow.
and I would say that I started in learning, teaching, becoming a headmaster, been around that all my life, really. And after moving away from school, starting to work with strategy in the public sector, I sort of missed some kind of intellectual stimulus, and I chose to become a student again. So that's basically the reason for me studying at this age.
Great. And what is it? You're studying project management, right?
Yes, I did. I started actually working with project management, and then I thought that I gotta know this from the base.
Yeah.
I mean the basics, and then just educating myself, because I can't walk around amongst people running projects and then actually not being a project manager. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I really admire that. And we often talk about how we have to, as individuals, continuously be learning in some way, shape, or form. I think from what I'm hearing from your perspective, yours is just a shape of formalized learning. And I love that you've gone, if I want to be a project manager, let me go and bloody study the stuff so that I can actually actually deliver it from a place that's informed and that's qualified. So I love that perspective as well. So we're going to be talking about career challenges, opportunities, and trends. So 3 meaty areas to dive into. Let's start with the challenges, because I've been speaking quite recently to some students in the UK, some master students, project management master students. And one of the key questions is, where do I start? Because I'm finding it challenging on what is my route into the profession.
Yeah.
And I wonder if we could start there. What are some of the challenges that you're finding, and maybe some of your peers that you've spoken to have found, wherever you are in your career and stage of life? Are the challenges the same? And I know you've spoken to people from around the world as well when in your studies. It's not just you're based in Sweden, which is fantastic, and we can have another accent on the podcast, which we love. But it's not just a Swedish perspective you're bringing us tonight. It's actually a global perspective, because you've had that international interaction.
Yeah. And I would say that where to start, it starts with yourself. I think that instead of looking at it as a challenge, you could actually look at it from the opportunities perspective. And I met students that didn't really know why they studied project management, or students that said, well, it was nice to have project management as a competency on my CV. So it's like some students, they're not really there because they have this as their passion. It's just another thing on the CV. And if you are there, then I think it's challenging, because how are you then going to break into the industry and find that thing that you love? So I would say that is a good place to start. Think through thoroughly, why did I choose to study project management?
Yeah, I love that. I think Simon Sinek is famous for, start with why.
Yeah.
And if we start there, what is your why, if you don't mind me asking?
As I said, I was one of these. I became a project manager by accident, in a way, moving into working for a strategy department that were starting to run a program on digitalization and financial streamlining. And the organization didn't know much about running projects, really. So it was really immature. And then fast learner, working in school and as a headmaster and doing that for all my life, I thought, okay, I better learn this fast to contribute. And that was sort of the way into it and the reason for choosing it, really. And then I have to add that choice was one of the best I've ever done in my life, because it was life altering at the stage in my life that I was, because it opened up a whole new world of possibilities. And that is why you can hear that I lean much more towards the possibilities than the challenges. So you better bring me back if you want to talk about them.
No, that's fantastic. And yeah, we'll absolutely get into this sort of the more positive side of things and the opportunities and absolutely the trends as well that are out there. But I find it fascinating that you were almost, or you were at the top of your game. You were the headmaster, right? In many senses, the pinnacle for a teacher, I guess. And you decided, well, actually, I want to go and be a student again. And what was that leap like? Sort of going from, well, I'm at the top now of my game profession, to all of a sudden actually, reinventing yourself in a way. I don't want to call it restarting, because it's not really restarting.
No,
it's reinventing yourself. I would say.
Yeah, and I'm gonna beat down a little bit on school and the school system right now, because after spending about 20 years in school, 10 as a teacher and 10 as a headmaster, you sort of realize that it is kind of a closed world. It is one of the institutions in society that is the most difficult to change, really. So the leap was sort of to get new perspectives. I can honestly say that I was finished with working in education, but not finished in receiving education or educating myself. And it opened up so many new perspectives. And as I said, working with the strategy that went across all sectors instead of staying in one sector, that is also something that I think that every human being needs to experience, because we have too many people thinking only about their field, only about their sector. And the world is getting so complex that we need to get better at actually speaking to each other, collaborating, running projects. So
yeah, absolutely. And it brings me back to some of our previous guests where we talk about having T-shaped skill sets, where you've got the breadth and the depth, right? Fusion skills is another topic we've spoken about on the podcast before. And, you know, we certainly kick the ties around, I guess, the UK and Australia and South African schooling systems where, you know, you go from one classroom to the next, but you don't actually, as a student growing up in your formative years, make the link. So you might go from mathematics class to geography or biology, and you compartmentalizing that in your head. And actually, if you brought those all together, well, wow, actually mixing those skills, wouldn't that be a better outcome? And actually, then if you bring that into the project management space, that's what we actually do. You actually bring all of those skills together because, you know, if you want to stay an engineer, fantastic, stay in your lane, be the best engineer you want to be and a subject matter expert. Don't become a project manager. But if you want to diversify, if you want to become a project manager, you have to have these various skill sets: how to deal with people, how to understand the technical side of things, understanding budgets, skill sets, looking after people, well-being, psychological safety, how to communicate, all these various aspects. So I find that absolutely fascinating, bring it back to, I guess, our base as schooling structure. But moving from that then into, I guess, the university side of things, that, I mean, in my experience, that's sort of more free form. That's up to you how you go about studying, and that's really a personal thing. But there's probably an argument to say, well, certainly from my perspective, that school doesn't prepare you for university because you're almost spoon-fed at school, and then you go to university and it's up to yourself. And so we don't actually give ourselves the right tools to be able to do that, and then leading into jobs becomes even more challenging and difficult if we don't pick those skills up. Having said that, we do want to move into, I guess, the opportunity space as well. So how do you take, I guess, the education piece, the drive to want to learn more? You've now upskilled yourself. You've identified there's various challenges. How do you then turn around, identify the opportunities? What are there? What are the tips and the tricks and some of the things you found and spoken to your peers about that the listeners can go, oh, that's a great idea. I need to look there, or I need to do this. Is there anything you can share in terms of opportunities? How to identify them, how to take them, anything?
I'm thinking that once again, it starts inside of you. Do you sit at the university thinking that you're going through middle school and that the education will do the same thing to you? If that is what you're expecting, I think you're in for a surprise, because exactly as you said, it is much more up to you what you make out of it. And in the study group I was taking part in at Karlstad Business School, one of our teachers used the terminology above and beyond, and we grabbed that right away. We loved that. So that sort of became the slogan then. In everything we did, we tried to go above and beyond. And I think that was like giving us a new mindset that whatever opportunity that presents itself, you have the choice. Either you take it or it is actually lost. You will not be able to backtrack to it. So I think the mindset is extremely important to be able to grab the opportunities that are out there. And another perspective on it is that nowadays we actually have the world at our feet, in a sense, with the connectivity all over the globe. I mean, we are not let's say back in the 60s, you became a project manager for an engineering firm. You worked for that firm for probably a long time, and maybe you went to a competitor and so on. Today, you can actually go from one industry to the other, and as a project manager, you're much more a generalist, because you are good at managing stuff, leading people, as you said, as the most important skill. So I think that being open that is, and working with your own mindset, self-reflect. What do I love? And trying to find a match. I've interviewed some highly experienced project managers doing my thesis, and almost all of them say that find your passion. You can't do this job if you don't like what you do. And someone else said that when I stopped making a difference between the personal me and the professional me, that was when it clicked. That was what did it. So I think that working with your mindset and your self-reflection is key.
Wow. So you mentioned a lot of things there that I want to get into, but let's start with mindset, because you've just, you've ended there. So for those that are listening and going, okay, mindset, how do I understand mindset? How do I change mindset? How do I influence my mindset? What are the tricks and tips there? I know you've said you've spoken to a lot of people. It sounds like it's around, getting the right advice. It sounds like it's coaching and mentoring. I don't want to lead the witness too much here. It sounds like reading the right materials. But then again, how do I know if the people or the books that I'm reading, and the people I'm interacting with, how do I know that they are the right people and the right literature, etc.? What are the tips and tricks around mindset, getting that right?
Maybe going through your life, I think you run into people that you feel you connect especially well with. You share values, you have fun, and you sort of feel that connection. And some people talk about that you find your tribe. And in after my education or in my education, I found some people through one of my teachers, and we actually started then, or we joined an initiative that they had taken, that they kept on seeing each other on a weekly basis, just supporting each other, working with self-development, talking about stuff, and sharing, trying to influence each other. And that builds the positive energies, really. And this Ikigai group, as we call ourselves, since we use that as a personal development tool, I think that is one tip. Try to find your tribe. Try to find the people that you get energy from, because that will slowly affect your mindset into, as one of the interviewees in my thesis said, I'm an incurable optimist. Everywhere I go, I see opportunities and I ask myself, how do I solve this? Where is the solution? And I think it's about going on that journey, spending time with the right people that take you closer to that future picture of yourself, really.
I love that. I love that. We humans are social animals, right? We want to belong. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that you've gone straight in there. Find your tribe, find your belonging. Before you think about mindset, find your belonging, and then you got the right people around, and then you can work on your mindset. So, and it's really straightforward, really, because everyone can find somewhere to belong. If we just have to look hard enough. So moving on, then you mentioned that project managers are generalists, and I would tend to agree with you in most cases. However, playing devil's advocate, I recently saw a post, and whoever it is, forgive me, I forgot who posted this on LinkedIn, but the notion that we should perhaps start thinking that we need to use project managers as specialists, right? And this is sort of borrowing, I guess, from sports, where you need a specific type of player for the specific type of opposition, because they have a certain type of experience, skill set that will deliver the best. What do you say to that, that actually, you know, we shouldn't be generalists as project managers, but actually we should have someone that's really good at winning a bid as a project manager, someone that's really good at setting the project up as the project manager, someone that's really good at executing during the middle phases, and someone that's really great at closing, or someone that's really great at commercials or contract administration as a project manager. What do you say to kind of that almost counter argument?
It's really interesting, and we could talk for hours about this, and it sort of brings you into these new notions about shared leadership, and how to actually empower people to lead because they are good at something. And I think that when I say that a project manager is a generalist, it's not. I think that you need to be good at actually empowering people to be the best that they are, and to use that for the team then. When you talk about specialist skills, someone is good at this, someone is good at this, yes, but still you can't have 8 project managers maybe, but you can have 8 people that lead separate things. But I still think that you as a project manager need to be the generalist that can actually move into any environment and deliver good, I would say people skills. You can get these people to, first of all, want to take the leading role, want to contribute, feel good when they do it, and not sort of push people over the edge reaching the results, because that is also a perspective that is very important when talking about leading the project. How do you leave the people when the project is finished? That is just as important as in what state they are when you start it.
You know, you make some very, very good points, and I think this comes back to what you mentioned earlier around, you know, having the right makeup in your team. And so it's almost, if you do have a team that is perhaps particularly strong in one area, then the project manager has to potentially be strong in the others to compensate potentially. But if you have a really strong team across the board, then the generalist project manager, you know, to complement that makeup, it's all about the makeup for me rather than whether it's a specialist or generalist project manager, if that makes sense, is what does the team look like? Are we covering all of our bases with the team rather than just the project manager or just the engineer or just the project controller?
Yeah. And I'm thinking about, I wrote my thesis on the subject of political astuteness.
Yeah.
And I think also that this is something that is there's a growing need for project managers to be politically astute, because as the world gets more complex and as we move towards a more dire need of actually delivering sustainability or regeneralization, it's the navigation between power centers, politicians, interest groups, that becomes much more important for the project manager to be able to do. And that is what I see as a generalist skill that you need. No matter what project you're in, you need to be able to navigate this. And that was why I got so interested in this topic as well. Having made the experience myself that you enter a project as a project manager and you sort of get betrayed or you get promised things and they never materialize, and a lot of people don't want the project to succeed, and you have this kind of treacherous environment that you have to navigate, right? And to be able to do that, I think that is a much more important skill for a project manager. And I think that if we can make or have project managers enhance their skills in this, I believe that we would see more successful projects than if we put the best engineer as a project manager or the best IT guy as the project manager. That is my firm belief.
I'm certainly with you there, because historically, I think a lot of project managers or leaders or managers in general were put there because they were the subject matter expert. But if you actually asked them, they didn't want to manage people. They wanted to be the subject matter expert, the technical expert.
Yeah.
And so we end up with people in the wrong jobs, not because of anything else than that was the natural path. I think that's changing today, as you're alluding to. But bringing it back, you stole my question, the answer to my question. I was going to say to you, what did you do your thesis on? And then you went and you answered it before I asked it. So political astuteness, and you went into it a little bit there. I wonder if we can explore that a little bit more. So
Absolutely.
I think you gave us kind of, why you went into choosing political astuteness because of your own experience. But I'm more intrigued about how you went about bringing it all together, how you selected those you interviewed, why you selected them. What was the range of various, I guess, experience levels, perhaps even leadership levels, or less experienced, perhaps even maybe if you interviewed those types of people. What was the range of different types of people you I guess spoke to, and then what conclusions did you come to in the end from political astuteness? And I mean from the sounds of it, it's like, well, I think you said it actually, project managers need to have this, but how do we get it as project managers? And what does it look like? What does good look like?
Yeah. So it's as I said, my own experiences brought me into it, and then also it was because we brought on a guest lecturer at Karlstad Business School, and that is Gene Hartley, that has been researching political astuteness in civil servants. So that made me interested. Her lecture, reading her work, and then I researched my own context, project management, then. And then what political astuteness consists of really, and what I concluded in my work is that there might be a difference between a political astute project manager, because that is a lot about all the cognitive skills we use and logical reasoning and everything like that, and that is an absolute need. You absolutely need to develop that, and it is mostly done by experience, often painful ones. The painful ones are the ones you learn most from, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
So, yeah, and everybody has them, and my motivation was a little bit to maybe be able to reduce the number of painful experiences. Like, could you hijack getting experience? And that was also the reason for interviewing very experienced project managers. So I only had one inclusion criteria really, and that was at least 10 years of project management. And I had people that have been working in the industry for 25 years, from 4 different continents, working all kinds of industries, really showing that as a project manager, you are a generalist. And it was so fascinating to do the interviews and hear the stories, everything from overt bribing to
Oh, wow.
backstabbing from colleagues, or highly political games where a project starts as there was one special story that struck me, that the first they heard about the project was when the politician actually exclaimed it in the parliament, "We're going to do this." And then it was like, okay, everybody hustle. How are we going to do this? And I guess you have examples like that all over the world. So so everything from handling state politics to internal team politics, and I got a very rich picture from these experienced project managers. I interviewed them, and the conclusions. As I said, I think that political astuteness and developing your political skill is a definite need. And the more complex the world gets, the more we need to be able to navigate this treacherous world. But then I also stumbled across a lot of quotes like, smelling, I smelled it, I sensed it, I read it. So there was something there that these project managers did that they could not really put into words. And I tried to probe it. But, and this caught my interest. And I think that is actually one of the most interesting findings in the thesis, that there's something about not only being logical, not only using your cognitive skills, but if you want to become a really good project manager, welcome to the show, Martin. If you want to become a really good project manager, you actually need to learn how to use your entire body, all the intelligences. You need to use your brain, you need to use the heart, and you need to use the gut.
Yeah.
So that was to me the most interesting conclusion, that is something to look further into.
That's fascinating because yeah, the brain, the heart, and the gut. Often we talk about hearts and minds and we forget about the gut.
Mm-hmm.
And you're quite right. You know, some of the best project managers I've worked with, or project directors and project controls folk, it just feels right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
one specific thing was that I also got a lot of answers that, people tweak numbers. People change data to fit their purpose, to get a decision going their way. So if you only use your brain and your logic and you look at the data and the numbers, you are going to be tricked, right? So you have to have that gut sense that, this data doesn't look really right, or I don't feel that this is the correct numbers, or there's something here. So that sort of visualized the need for developing that skill, and that the really great project managers, they don't just use the logic. I know there's a lot of talk about getting AI support and stuff like that. I think that will definitely get us part of the way, but I also have a firm belief that we as humans, if we learn to use all three of our intelligences, really, that will bring you even further as a project manager.
That's a great point, because we are seeing a big movement to data, AI, you know, all pointing towards, you know, data science, data analytics. What is the data telling us? What is the single source of truth? And it's a fine line, isn't it? Because when do you make the call to trust your head versus your heart versus your gut? And back to your earlier points, is that's all around experience and knowing, and you're going to make mistakes along the way. Because as one of our previous guests, Mr. Paul Gu, just said, you know, garbage in, gospel out.
Yeah.
Right. And that is so true, because if you see data and you believe that it is true and a single source of truth, then you go by that, yet what's gone in is garbage, and you believe it. Well, guess what? You're making decisions based on really shaky foundations. And yes, you're right. I've worked with, you know, some really good project directors that just go, the data just doesn't feel right.
And when it comes to AI and machine learning and all this technology, it can absolutely help us, but we have to be very aware what it can help us with, and so that we use it in the right way.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned curiosity before we started the recording here today, and I think that is one of the things also that AI cannot give us. And we are by far the most creative entities on this world, and there's also the courage. So these 3 C's that people talk about that AI cannot replicate. So being curious, creative, and having the courage to sometimes actually move against the data because it just feels right. I think those are important things to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Look, before we move on to the trends section, you said it while you were chatting there. Welcome, Mr. Martin Karlstad, finally joining us there after a few bivvies. How are you doing?
Sorry, I'm late, Dale. It's yeah, one extra pint and a load of train delays. Sorry.
We won't hold it against you.
Yeah.
No, look, we've been having a lot of fun in your absence. You've got all the actions, Martin, from this meeting, so I'll hand them to you at the end of the recording. No, it's great to have you join us, Martin. We've covered a lot of ground. We've spoken about the challenges, the opportunities in careers. We've spoken about your thesis, Magnus, but it's time to head into the trends, I think, because one thing that we struggle with, I think, when it comes to career is, where is the profession moving? And no one truly has the crystal ball. We kind of dip the toe in the water there a little bit around data and how data is shaping a bit of the profession. You've obviously brought in the counter argument that it can't be totally data, that we have to have the human aspect of gut feel and heart, as well as the mind and the logic. And we've certainly spoken around with previous guests as well that whilst the data can give you the raw hard facts for a lot of it, it can't always provide you the context. And that's what you're talking about as well, around the, you know, the 3 C's as well as the courage, and some of the other attributes that AI can't give us. But just from your studies, what are some of the trends that you're seeing that those coming into the profession can use to sort of forge their career as they're entering, as they're starting in this career of project management, or even perhaps those that have been in the profession for a few years and feel a bit stale and go, I just feel like I've lost my why, I've lost my mojo as a project manager. What are the trends to get people excited about? How's the profession evolving?
Well, I would say that I hope that it's evolving a little bit from one of the challenges that I noted down before is that a lot of the project management work is short term. You live in short term contracts. You move in a high pace, and today the world, maybe more than ever, yes, we need quick solutions, but not quick fixes, right? We need solid solutions, and we need to deliver them fast. So I hope that also means that maybe you move from that short-term trend into actually having a longer duration of hiring people, creating more sustainable solutions. Because I think that if you want to create sustainable solutions, you also have to give project managers sustainable working conditions and safety. So I hope that is a trend that we're seeing, especially with the projectification, that we do more and more projects all over the world, really. And then the complexity, as I was talking about, I think that this looking into politics and political astuteness, which is made out of really people skills. And if you want to forge your career, you need to become a people person before you become a technical project manager, or not before, but you have to have your weight on that, and really be that people person and develop those skills consciously. As I said, self-reflection, I think that is the greatest tool ever that you can use as a project manager. And someone said, like, before you can lead someone else, you need to learn how to lead yourself. And that is also relatable then into what you're saying, to forge your career. Yeah, lead yourself, be aware of things. So I guess that maybe that is a trend, that you need to move away from being the IT expert and actually moving into being more of a generalist, people skilled person. I think that is a trend we're seeing.
Do you think that's something that is being taught in universities now, or will be taught in universities when people are studying project management or whatever technical degree? Do you think that will be a trend, or?
You really make a smashing entrance, Martin, because that was a great question. I love that question. I think that one trend that we're seeing, and that is based on my own experience from Karlstad Business School, but I've also looked at some other universities in Boston, and there are universities in some places in the world that they actually move into delivering. I've expressed it like they're going live with their education. And that sort of ties into the political astuteness as well, that if you have students spending all of your time in the classroom, they don't get any real experience, right? But when you start to educate them and you start using simulations, you start using role play, but then if you also bring them out into the real world, delivering in the real world, actually doing live projects within their education, then you can, in a maybe slightly more safe way, let them have their first painful experiences without too dire consequences. So I think that is a trend we're seeing, that higher education moves to becoming more practical, more in touch with the real world, rather than spending time in the classroom.
It's great points you raise there, and you're right, Magnus. Martin does make a smashing entrance. It's why he's called Machine Gun Martin, and everyone asks us why we call him that. It's just, comes in and shoots from the hip, which is great. Yeah. I was just wondering, while you're talking there, and I know we sort of going down a rabbit hole here of education, universities. We spoke previously about schooling systems and that. Do we risk qualifying people with stale or soon to be stale qualifications, with the increased nature of how things are changing? And we get to a point and you got this qualification, then you've got your bachelor's, and then you've got your master's, etc. And this is coming from someone that has done those things. I then wonder, well, what I studied just a year ago, has that now evolved and changed? Is it still relevant? Yeah. And just because I've previously completed a master's, does that still make me relevant today? I just want to challenge that a bit. Our system that we set up to go, yeah, you've got a master's now, so it's fantastic. You're great, put you on the pedestal. But actually, What you learned is no longer relevant.
No. And I love that question as well, because it's you see that all over the LinkedIn and social media, that I have done this, I have done that, and just certifications flying all over the place. And how do you actually validate that the person can do what they say they're capable of? And I think that going live then is one way of doing it. And I'm not the typical student going into studying a master's at the age of 48 and now being 50. And I think that maybe I'm more the future student, because I think that we will have to actually educate ourselves at different points in time in the future, and educating ourselves throughout our lives to fit the needs actually, and to develop our competences. Because as you say, a master's, maybe that gives you some credentials and you can do some things, but then maybe in 5 years you will have to need to build on it. And that's why I think that those who are looking at shaping the future university studies, they're talking about moving from 2-year part-time programs into creating smaller modules where you study for a shorter period of time something specific, and then you can build these into, maybe you don't even have to end up having a master's degree. Maybe it's just be comprised out of modules that you have done. And that is probably a trend that has been sparked a little bit by all of these online possibilities of studies. You get badges, you get this. And then if that is the way to go or not, well, I guess we'll have to see. But I think that is a need in the future, because people in my situation later in their career, we sort of need to switch careers sometimes, and we need to learn new things to be relevant to the society, really.
Are there certain countries or certain universities that are doing this already, so offering shorter degrees and kind of smaller modules to their students?
That I'm not really sure about that. I know that there has been talks about it or ideas about it in Karlstad Business School, where I've been studying. That is where I've heard it, and I know that it's an idea that exists, but I don't know if anyone has followed through with it in that sense. Like we said before, Dale, that school and also university is one of the most difficult institutions in society to change. So I don't think we're gonna see radical change soon, though. So
yeah, well, I'd like to think that if schools and universities are part of the typical economics of demand and supply, if we create enough demand, maybe they'll change their supply.
Yeah, and it's actually I have to boast Karlstad Business School a little bit then, because they have a great saying that no knowledge isn't worth anything if you don't know how to use it. And they want to reach have students create societal impact. And I think that says a lot, that it's not about getting your degree or your diploma or your master's. It's not about that. It's actually about using it when you get out there, or maybe even when you are taking the program. And that is my experience, that when we studied in my study group, we as I said before, we went above and beyond, and we got the opportunity through one of our guest lecturers then to support a cause. It's called FIGS, Friends of Ibba's Girls' School, and it's a foundation supporting a girls' school in Sudan. So she dedicated her lecture to that cause. And we sort of grasped that moment, and we built on that. And actually through that, we financed the schooling for one girl for a year while we were doing our education, sort of proving that you're not just a student, you are actually a human being in this world first, and you can affect it while taking your studies. You don't have to wait to be done having your degree. Go to work right away and affect the world positively with what you do. So that is also a tip to forge your career. Believe that you can affect the world to be a better place. Go and do it right now.
Wow, very, very powerful words there, Magnus. I had another thought that I want to put on the table and see your thoughts on this. If we're kind of saying, well, if we're saying that degrees and, you know, master's degrees and all these sort of qualifications are marketing, right? And we move to, I guess, perhaps your more Amazon model of where it's all about the reviews of people that have tested and tried it, and you know, you've got rating systems. So you typically want to look for something that got, you know, close to 5-star rating. It's got hundreds, if not thousands, of reviews from people. Can we then treat people like that? Can we say, right, we've got lots of reviews from people that have worked with this person. They've then rated them as well, and that's in the public domain. So you know what you're getting from people that have experience working with this person.
I don't know what the GDPR people would say about that.
I knew you were going to say that.
But actually, one of the most interesting interviews for my thesis, the project manager I talked to there, he said that all his work, all his engagements and contracts came through the word of mouth. And that is also something that is important when forging your career. Then you have to walk the talk. Like you can't just play around as a project manager, because people will not hire you. They will not recommend you to the next job. You will not get the next opportunity. And that was really interesting and relates to what you're saying about reviews. I think we already have that. It's just not out on the social media yet. So, and if we'll get there, I don't know. But I think that is actually how the industry is working. That you sort of prove yourself, you deliver, and then people get interested. And I also think that one of the, since I'm a teacher in my background and I've been around learning and knowledge management for all of my life, I believe that what we really need to look for, and what companies look for, is people that can learn. I think that is the most central thing, actually, because yes, you have a backpack, you bring something to the table, but the thing is, often we face the unknown, and we face a context that we know very little about, because we bring in people that maybe we've never worked with. We have power plays in the halls and corridors that we know nothing about. So we're constantly facing the unknown. And how do you prepare for that? Someone called it the Star Trek principle, I think I've heard. How do you prepare to face the unknown as a project manager? Well, I think that I believe that you need to make sure that you yourself is in some kind of balance, so that you're able to actually take in all the signals that you receive. And you need to be a fast learner and be able to then use the signals, learn, and then handle the situation in the best possible way. And if you're stressed, if you're overworked, if you're mentally not in balance, I think that you do less of a good job interpreting all the signals and actually handling the situations.
Yeah, no, great points. And just as you touch back on people you interviewed, it got me thinking, did you see any themes or trends on different industries from the people that you interviewed, from where they came? So were certain industries better geared and set up for entry into the profession than others? Did some industries have different challenges to others? I just wonder if you had any idea of industry comparison as you went about interviewing people from those industries.
Not really. I had project managers that had been working in almost every industry you could think of, because they, as I said, were generalists and they've been moving from industry to industry.
Mm-hmm.
But what was also a very relevant finding was that culture plays part, and not only geographical culture but also company culture, of course. So that was a very important thing, and it was also said that when you develop experience, the more diverse and the more complex environment you work in, the faster you develop your experience, right? So most of the project managers said that if you work in a cross-cultural project, traveling between countries, working in big complex projects where you have different sectors contributing, this will develop your experience tremendously and much faster than if you work in just one sector. So that is also maybe a tip for someone who wants to forge a career. Then don't stay in one industry. Don't unless you really love it. I mean, if you have found your tribe and if you really love the situation, but if you're there to actually develop yourself as a project manager, try to get different experiences, move around a little, because that will develop you tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've heard it, Martin, move around a little, but you have moved from your delayed train to the Project Chatter podcast. So let's bring you in, Mr. Carlson, because you've been fairly quiet there. What do you have for our guest, Mr. Magnus Olsen?
You put me on the spot there now, Dale.
Yeah.
I was quite interested in some of the trends, and maybe we were chatting a little bit after the pod last night, Dale, about people coming from university into the workplace and the types of assessments that they're having to do. How do workplaces find the best students? And sometimes it's the people who are the most talkative on the day during assessment centers. Mm. What would be your experience of this, Magnus? Are there graduate programs in Sweden? How do companies find the right students who are the best fit for their company, rather than those who may be the loudest on an assessment day?
Yeah, we have that type of programs in Sweden as well. One example is called Higher Ambition Program, where you study and you actually get hired by a company part-time while studying. So that is one way into it, I guess. And then I think the trends around this is the drive for having a higher purpose is really important today, and the companies are maybe looking for people that do have that, because if you work with something where you feel a higher purpose, you deliver and you have intrinsic motivation. And this was also visible in the interviews I did in my thesis, that this is an important point. And then I have experience of having had chances of positions and being passed on for, to me, no obvious reasons, really. And I guess that is something that we partly just need to live with. It's never going to be totally fair who gets a job and who doesn't. But of course, we have to strive to have it as fair as possible. But the networking for a project manager is extremely important, because the bigger you grow your network, of course, the more opportunities you will have. And that was also in the thesis interviews for the thesis, that you need to grow your network, but you also have to take care of it. And not just going for volume necessarily, but actually take care of your network, because you learn from your network, you get opportunities, you build trust in your network, and so on. So that is also important, I think, for especially important for a project manager.
For someone who's new to the industry, what would you recommend to someone building their network? Sorry. So obviously, when you're at university, you'll have your friends and colleagues. When you may do an internship at some point, you'll get some colleagues. What would you recommend for people going about building their network?
Well, for me, the network was built mainly around LinkedIn, and starting with the people I had close, the people I studied with, the teachers, and then always be on your toes when it comes to networking. Do reach outs. Don't be shy, because I've actually never come across someone who has rejected my reach out. Most people, as you said, Dale, we're social creatures. Like, most people like when they get reach outs, right? So don't be shy, and you never know what a connection is going to bring. And I have a great story, if we have 2 minutes for that. Last summer, I made a reach out because we were studying risk management, and I saw this girl posting on LinkedIn that she was working with risk analysis in the industry, and I thought, risk management in project management, risk analysis in industry, could we learn something from each other? So I made a reach out, and we started talking, had a digital coffee, and exchanged some ideas. Really interesting. What I didn't know then was that 6 months later, after a few meetings, she asked me to join her startup company. So what started as a reach out to try to learn something ended up becoming a real chance for me. So I'm now part of Deity Safety Solutions, working on a digital solution for the industry, and I'm a co-founder. And that has also made me realize that one part of society that really needs project managers, that is the startup industry and the entrepreneurial world. Because most often the people that hatch the best ideas, they are in their ideas. They know their industry, but they're not necessarily that good of spending their time on the right things to get this ball rolling. So I would say that many startups are in need of partnering up with a project manager who can focus the energy where it matters the most and structure that startup journey that you're on. And that is one example of how something starts as a simple reach out and it ends up being a real opportunity. So don't be shy. Do reach outs, even if you don't really understand or have a clear idea of what it will bring, because it will bring you something.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that you bring up there, Magnus, because I'm working, one of the clients I'm working with now is a startup as well. And, you know, I think we were chatting before we hit record around, you know, an episode we had before with a guest, Antonio Nieto Rodriguez, about how we're moving into this, you know, project economy, really. And we just don't have, you know, well, we do have enough people. We just don't have enough experienced and skilled people yet, if that makes sense. And so we're trying to catch up with the demand, I think. But it's interesting you mentioned startups, because we haven't really gone into, well, you know, what does the project management in a startup look like? Well, I don't think it's anything different to what a large established organization's project management should look like. It's just perhaps a bit more scaled down. And it's an interesting point there. But I mean, look, you know, we've spent the best part of over an hour with you, and we know it's late, so we don't want to keep you too much longer. But before we do let you go, and we'd love to have you back, because I agree with you, we can talk to you for hours and hours on all these various topics. We do have some features at the end, and you know, thankfully Martin's train wasn't too late, and he's made it back just in time for the features. So Martin, if you would please, Machine Gun Martin, take Mr. Magnus Olsen through his paces.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time tonight, Magnus. Really enjoyed it, and I do need to listen back to the first half. I'm sure I missed some good insights there. Yep, as Dale said, we've got time for a quick feature. It's called Fiverr. It's 5 quick-fire questions all about yourself. So if you're ready, let's make a start.
Yeah.
Okay. Question 1, steak, seafood, or salad?
Oh, seafood.
Nice. What are the 3 must-have behaviors you look for in successful project teams?
Oh, collaboration, to have fun, and reflection.
Nice. What's the one piece of advice for people new to the project management profession?
Look for your tribe.
Tribe. Interesting.
Tribe.
Tribe.
Find your tribe.
Okay. I like that one. Interesting.
Yeah, you'll have to go back and listen to the first half there, Martin.
Okay. That'll teach me to be late. Number 4, what would be your book recommendation to our listeners?
Oh, book recommendation. I would say that must be, but this is in Norwegian, implementation is the translation. So I would guess my book recommendation would be any book on implementation, because I find that this is a necessary supplement to actually running a project. What happens afterwards? We need to know a little bit about that as well.
Nice. Okay, final question. If you had your time again, you've just finished school, would you choose an apprenticeship, university, or straight into the workplace?
I would choose university.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
That was a bit of fun there at the end, and thank you for being a good sport, Magnus. Look, as we said, it's been amazing just to, you know, kick the tires with you on all sorts of things. I'm sure we could have gone down plenty more rabbit holes and found plenty more nuggets as we went about our business there. But look, before we let you go, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with?
Oh, I would really really like to enhance what we talked about with the self-reflection part. It is so important that you as a project manager know yourself and are able to lead yourself, because otherwise you have a high risk of actually ending up with painful experiences or being worked out because you just don't know when to quit and you get pushed around. You need to lead yourself to be healthy and balanced, because then you're also at the peak of your decision making. So finding that balance through self-reflection, I think that is a key to me.
Wow. What great words to end on there. And we got to give a special shout out to Karen Thompson as well. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much to Karen for doing the introduction. Martin, a late Martin, any final thoughts from you?
No, thanks a lot for that, Magnus. I really like that thing at the end there. Find your tribe, and knowledge isn't worth anything if you don't know how to use it. I'm definitely going to use some of those in the future. So yeah, thanks for your insights tonight.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
It's been our pleasure. It's been our privilege, Magnus. So thank you very much, folks. There you have it. That's all the time we have on this episode. But remember, before you go, please do help us pay it forward. Share a link to this episode on your favorite social media if you like what you've heard. Once again, a massive, massive thank you to our guest today, Magnus Olsen. And thank you all for listening. Till next time, we say stay safe, be disruptive, and have fun doing it. From me and Martin, it's bye for now.